All right, so this is my current very healthy and healed gut. And this is what a gut should do when you put food in it. You should be able to eat whatever you want, have it go in your body, have it nourish you without having negative consequences. So this right here is what a healthy gut looks like. You can see it is sealed very tight. The food goes in. Your valve closes. There's no heartburn coming up. There's nothing getting up into your esophagus. And there's no food coming out. It stays in the gut just like it's supposed to. This is what a healthy gut looks like. This is what my gut looks like now. But it wasn't always this way. All right, so I got sick in 2017. And back in 2017, this was my gut. Okay, when I first started, prior to me getting sick, it was pretty sealed up. But after some time and some poor decisions on my part, my gut began to leak. And there are a bunch of factors that degraded my gut. And those factors are laid out in front of me right here. All right, so the first one is sugary foods. Foods that are full of carbohydrates, refined grains. Those foods can be very, very inflammatory to the gut. They can erode the gut wall and just cause general dysbiosis in the gut, because when you're eating tons of carbohydrates like I was, because I was powerlifting and 60% of my diet was carbohydrates, then that is inflammation in the body. And this is especially true if you're consuming refined sugars and refined grains and things like that, because they are very, very pro-inflammatory, and they're going to go in your body. They're going to cause inflammation in the gut and can erode and degrade the gut lining. And that's exactly what happened with me. Another bad problem with refined sugars and grains and carbohydrates is they also tend to usually be processed or hyper-processed foods, which is even worse, because then they're full of a bunch of other stuff, which we'll get into in a minute. But that includes things like artificial ingredients, additives, fillers, preservatives, as well as antibiologics, pesticides, and herbicides. So that's number one. The next one is hyper-processed food. Now, I wasn't a huge hyper-processed food guy, but I did a lot of cheat meals, and when I did cheat meals, I did quite a bit of hyper-processed food. Now, hyper-processed food has the same problem as what I just mentioned, but additionally, hyper-processed food, like I mentioned, has additives, fillers, preservatives, food dyes, a bunch of artificial, unnatural things that you are not supposed to be putting in your body. That stuff goes in your body doesn't know what to do with it. A lot of it is actually harmful, toxic substances, and that degrades and erodes away at your gut lining. All right, the next one, and this is one people usually don't think about, but tap water. Tap water has the same problem as hyper-processed foods because it has antibiologics, pesticides, and herbicides. There are now lots and lots of PFAs in tap water, chlorine, fluoride, as well as heavy metals. Some of the chemicals in tap water, like fluoride, are very, very corrosive. So you might think you're doing okay by drinking this tap water, but when you consume it every single day and you're drinking that basically all throughout the day for your entire life or however long you're drinking tap water, that's going to go in your body and that's going to cause problems. And there's a pretty good chance that it's also going to degrade your gut. And one additional mention about tap water is most of it also contains pharmaceutical drugs. All right, that stuff gets flushed out into the water supply. It is not filtered out before you drink it. And there are certain medications that can 100% degrade the gut lining. And that gets me to my next point. There are certain medications that can degrade the gut lining and lead to leaky gut. And there are certain medications I was taking. Antibiotics is a big one. Allergy medication is another big one. Another big reason my gut probably started leaking is because of antibiologics, pesticides, and herbicides. Because when I was powerlifting and I was eating this bodybuilding diet, I was eating a lot of fruits, vegetables, and whole grains. All right, and those things are notoriously sprayed with lots and lots of pesticides and herbicides. And we're talking to the tune of millions of gallons per year on the foods that we consume. And that's a big problem because it is now being shown that things like glyphosate degrades the gut lining. And there are actually pesticides out there that are made and designed to cause holes in the insect stomach to kill the insects. And there's a lot of people looking into that now, thinking that the prevalence of leaky gut is pretty darn high. I wonder if that plays a role. Probably does. And that brings me to another reason my gut was probably degraded, and that is because I was eating a lot of leafy greens and a lot of vegetables in general. And like I just mentioned, those things are notoriously sprayed with pesticides and herbicides if you're getting them from big industry, which I was. And additionally, there's also a lot of plant toxins or phytochemicals that are naturally occurring in the plants that you consume, and those can possibly also degrade the gut lining. And on top of that, fiber, which we're led to believe you need a lot of, can actually be abrasive to the gut lining and potentially degrade the gut. And because I was trying to be healthy and I wanted to do all the things that was promoted as being healthy, you know, I was eating a diet very high in whole grains. I was getting whole grain bread, whole grain bagels. I was eating a lot of grain-based granola bars, and I was eating brown rice and quinoa and all this stuff. And grains are seeds, and seeds are made to go into your digestive system, pass through without being digested, and come out in a pile of fertilizer so that the seeds can grow. That is what a grain is designed to do. And that is because grains are full of phytochemicals, plant toxins, lectins, phytates, things like that. Things that are made to go in your gut and pass straight through. But when you consume them and you chew them up and you process them, that can cause inflammation in the gut. It can cause a lot of problems to the gut lining. Things like gluten, those can be very, very big problems. And like I mentioned before, grains are notoriously sprayed with pesticides and herbicides. As a matter of fact, they're actually genetically engineered so that they can spray as much herbicide on there as they can possibly put on there, things like glyphosate, and it doesn't affect the actual plant, but it nukes everything around it. That's probably another big reason why my leaky gut happened. Another very big reason that I probably had leaky gut and my gut was destroyed is because I was eating a diet that is promoted as healthy, that is very low in the essential nutrients that you need to maintain a healthy gut. Things like collagen, protein, essential amino acids, saturated fat. The modern American diet is pretty much devoid of all that stuff. The average American eats about 2.5 ounces of red meat per day, which is very, very small. And there is hardly any collagen in the food that we consume. And collagen is absolutely fundamental for maintaining a healthy gut. And because red meat and saturated fat has been demonized, very few people get collagen in their diet because collagen comes from animal products. I fell into that trap. I was eating very lean meat that has no collagen in there. I avoided red meat and I did not consume saturated fat. And that right there is probably another very large factor on why I ended up getting leaky gut. And last but not least, all of those things that I just mentioned creates an environment in your gut that is perfect for things like H. pylori, parasites, fungus, yeast, candida, and a bunch of really bad bacterial overgrowth that you do not want happening in your gut. All right, and it just so happens that eating all those foods that I just mentioned 100% led to exactly that. It led to me getting a parasitic infection. It led to me getting candida overgrowth. It led to me getting SIBO. It led to me getting H. pylori, and all those things burrow in your gut and they degrade your gut lining. All right, that is one of the worst things you can have in your gut. And getting rid of that once it's in there is very, very hard to do. So that right there is also another very big reason of why I ended up getting leaky gut. So all of those things combined, they go hand in hand. They feed on each other. When one thing causes leaky gut, it leads to another thing causing leaky gut, and it leads to another thing causing leaky gut, and they compound upon themselves. And before you know it, you have a gut that is completely destroyed, that is leading to a lot of very negative health outcomes. And this is what a leaky gut looks like. This is what my gut looked like back in 2017. When I would consume food, it would go in to my gut and it would come right back out. which is not a good scenario. So this is leaky gut. The food goes in your body, it goes in your stomach. It doesn't seal up all the way at the top because now you have these bad bugs living in your gut. Now you have heartburn, acid reflux, indigestion. Now you have a gut that does not hold the food and the toxins and the chemicals in your stomach, and it leaks out and goes in your blood. It goes throughout your body. It causes inflammation. It can cause autoimmune conditions. It can lead to skin conditions like eczema, psoriasis, rosacea. It can lead to allergies, and especially food allergies, rashes, hives, gas, bloating, poor digestion, acne, histamine intolerance, gut dysbiosis, bad bacterial overgrowth, candida, fungus, parasites, general inflammation in the body. All these very, very bad things. And all these very bad things can potentially lead to a bunch of very serious chronic conditions, things like autoimmune conditions and autoimmune disorders. And most of that stuff that I just mentioned, it's a lot of stuff, but most of that stuff are things that I suffered from when I had leaky gut. And that is not a fun experience. It is not something you want to deal with. All right, so step one, and this is the most fundamentally important step of all, is to get rid of all the stuff I mentioned at the beginning of this video as far as diet goes. So hyper-processed food, refined grains, sugars, a carbohydrate-filled diet, you want to get rid of all that stuff. Anything that has pesticides, herbicides, antibiologics on there, anything that is full of harmful chemicals that are going to degrade your gut, leafy greens, grains, all that stuff you want to remove from your diet. So what I did specifically is I landed on a carnivore diet. I didn't do that intentionally. I was actually just reaching out in a sheer act of desperation. And I knew that the one thing that didn't bother me and didn't cause my gut to go in complete disarray was meat. So I focused on eating only meat, and to my surprise, that worked out very, very well and was the most important, most fundamental thing that led to me eventually healing my gut. So what I would recommend for step one is I would recommend adopting a carnivore diet. So for the first 30 days, that's going to be an adaptation period. That's going to be where you get rid of all the toxic food you're consuming and you replace those foods with fatty red meat. And if it were me and I was doing this all over again, I would do it exactly the way I did then. And I would focus on only fatty red meat, salt, and water. So basically a strict lion diet, at least for the first 30 days. Because a lot of people, they're going to have to adapt during that period. There's going to be a lot of detox going on, a lot of unwanted side effects. And doing a strict lion diet is going to set you up for the greatest chance of success. Now, including things like electrolytes and stuff like that in there, and making sure to salt your food to taste and staying properly hydrated can definitely help. But that is exactly what I did. And another big thing is getting away from tap water. So during this 30-day transition period, I would get rid of all tap water and I would drink unfiltered water from a spring, from the earth, from an underground aquifer, and focus on that. If you don't have access to that, I would buy a pretty decent, tabletop water filter, and I would use that, something like a Berkey or a Zero water filter. All those will filter out pretty much everything in the water, including PFAs, which is one of the hardest things to get out. The only thing is you have to remember to add electrolytes and stuff back in there, which you can do pretty simply by adding sea salt or pink Himalayan salt or something like that back to the water. And that in a nutshell is step one. It's very, very simple. Now, once you're past the 30-day adaptation period, what I did is I transitioned into step two. And step two, I would say, is optional. Step two is for cleansing and detoxification. So if you think you have a lot of the other bad stuff I mentioned in your gut, like gut dysbiosis, which would be a bacterial overgrowth, or you have candida, parasites, fungal infections, yeast infections, anything like that growing in your gut that shouldn't be there, that's where step two comes in. So for the next 60 days, stick to a carnivore diet. And at this point, you could reintroduce other carnivore foods with the exception of conventional dairy and any conventional dairy product, because those can be pro-inflammatory for a lot of people and they just don't know it. So focus on, things like wild-caught salmon, wild-caught fish, pretty much any kind of red meat from ruminant animals. You could introduce things like chicken or pork if you wanted to eat that. Eggs is a great option, keeping in mind that some people don't do well with egg whites. So maybe just do the yolks if you think you have an intolerance there. But focus on animal products, no conventional dairy, and cleansing and detoxification. And you're going to want to do parasite cleanses for all the bad stuff that you think you might have living in your gut, including H. pylori, because all these things can drill holes in your gut and you can have the best diet in the world, But if you still have that stuff living inside you, it is going to continue to degrade your gut and you will never fully heal it. Now for me, I had all that bad stuff living in me. Pretty much all that stuff I mentioned. And it took me right at a year to fully eradicate all this stuff from my gut and heal it. All right, so just keep in mind that this is not an overnight thing. This is not going to happen just like that. You know, we all want stuff like next day. We got Amazon now, like next day delivery. We got to have it now. Well, you got to keep in mind here that, you know, it could take years or possibly even decades to get to that point to have your gut destroyed that bad. So you could assume it's going to take some time to heal it. All right, so this is not a quick fix. For some people, it might be. Like if your gut's not that bad off and you're just suffering from a mild case of leaky gut, it could be pretty simple. It could be pretty quick, you know, a matter of weeks or possibly even a couple months. But for other people like me, where I was like chronically wasting away because I was so sick, it took me right at about a year to fully heal that. All right, so if you don't think you have that bad stuff living inside you, it could be beneficial to do a parasite cleanse anyway, just to make sure. But if not, you can skip step 2 and go straight to step 3. All right, and step 3, this is where the magic happens. So if you skip step 2, you would basically be starting on day 31 of the carnivore diet, and you would run that at least for another 60 days. So you would end up completing about 90 days on a carnivore diet, and you would include all the things I'm about to mention. And that should take you through and pretty much set you up for a really good chance of healing your gut. And if not, you can just continue that for as long as needed until your gut is fully healed. And you're going to know it's healed because a lot of the conditions you're suffering from are going to start to go away. They're going to start to dissipate. Things like autoimmune conditions, if you have really bad allergies, or rosacea, dermatitis, skin conditions, acne, all that stuff is going to start to probably resolve or at least clear up. And if you continue even longer until you're fully healed, most of that stuff is going to resolve itself. And that was certainly the case for me. But if you didn't skip step 2, then you should be starting on day 91 because you would have done the 30-day transition period and then the additional 60 days of carnivore and the cleansing. And then on day 91, you would be starting on step 3. So step 3 is going to be all about healing. So you're going to be focusing on carnivore foods, the same stuff I just mentioned. So pretty much any kind of animal product goes. I would still avoid conventional dairy and anything that gives you some sort of intolerance or negative side effect. Just put that in the pile of foods that you don't consume right now. And you can go back to those later if you want, once your gut's healed. And you will probably have better outcomes consuming those foods after your gut is healed. Because what I found is that when I had leaky gut, I actually developed a lot of food intolerances. There was a lot of things I couldn't eat. I had histamine intolerance and all that bad stuff. But now that my gut is healed, I can pretty much eat whatever the heck I want. I stick to a carnivore diet. I've been on that 5.5 years now because it makes me feel absolutely phenomenal. And there's no foods that optimize my health like animal products. So I stick to those. But for healing your gut, animal products is going to be the number one, most nutrient dense, most bioavailable, low inflammatory food that you can possibly consume to heal your gut. And the good thing about animal products is there's also a lot of collagen in there. You're going to be getting essential amino acids, saturated fat. All these things promote healing and are low inflammatory, and they are going to set you up for your best chance of success. Now, with that said, you would basically carry step 3 out for as long as needed until your gut is fully healed. And there are some very powerful healing aids that can help you through this process. And I'm going to show you exactly what I used. All right, so the first thing is my personal favorite, and that is bone broth. I just made up 2 big batches last night. I'm getting ready to make some more today. I never go without this. Now, I consume bone broth once or twice a day now. When I was healing, I consumed it 2 to 3 times a day, every single day. I always have this in my freezer. I never let myself run out. This right here, this liquid gold, was absolutely fundamental in allowing me to heal my gut. Because the good thing about bone broth is that it is full of collagen, essential amino acids, protein, and it is very, very nourishing to your body and to your gut. So this is my number one. And this is what has kept my gut healed ever since I healed it about 4.5 years ago. And making this is very, very simple. I just collect all the bones that I have from me and my dog. I put them in freezer bags. I stick them in the freezer. When I have 2 to 3 pounds, I put them in the crock pot. I add some unfiltered water in there from an aquifer. Sometimes I add a tablespoon or 2 of apple cider vinegar to help extract the nutrients from the bones. I turn it on low. 16 to 24 hours later, this is the result. And you can see this is very, very jelly. This is what it should look like. That means it is very rich in collagen. All right, so if you're not a fan of bone broth, or you don't have access to this, or you can't make your own, or if you have a histamine intolerance, because some people, bone broth can be kind of high in histamine, so it may not be ideal for everybody, but you can also go with a collagen supplement. All right, this is my favorite here. This is Orgain Collagen Peptides. No, I'm not sponsored by them. This is a very, very good one. This is the one I used. You can also get Vital Proteins. They make a very good one as well. And between those two, those are the ones I would choose. The only reason I like bone broth better is just because bone broth has all the stuff that's coming from the bone. So there's calcium in there, there's a lot of vitamins and minerals, and it's also very nourishing and hydrating. When you're consuming just collagen peptides, you know, this one right here, it's grass-fed, but it is literally just bovine collagen peptides. That's all it is. You don't have all the stuff that's getting extracted out of the bones like you would with bone broth. But this is another great option, and this will absolutely help heal the gut. This is a powerhouse for healing the gut. All right, and my third pick, this is another very, very helpful and very useful healing tool. I've got 3 different kinds here I'm going to show you. So I actually bought this one for my dog. This is colostrum. All right, so this is from Shiny Dogs. Don't tell anybody, but I consume this as well. All right, even though this is for my dog, I still eat it. And this is actually very good stuff. It's very pure. So the good thing about colostrum is that the enzymes and the things that are in colostrum promote healing of the gut lining. And not only do they help heal the gut lining, but they also help to protect the gut from things like parasites and bad bacteria, fungus, yeast, candida, and all that bad stuff. So colostrum can be a very, very powerful tool to add to the arsenal. Now, the only thing I will say about colostrum is that if you have a intolerance to dairy, it might not be for you. So that's that one. I've got this one here as well. This one is from Wonder Cow. This is actually empty, but that's another one that I've tried before. And then I have this one here, which is from Health's Harmony. All right, and I'm not sponsored by any of these brands. All right, I just want to make that very clear. These are things that I've personally tried, and this is what I can speak to. And these products specifically have worked very well for me. So that's what I'm recommending. Now this one here is 30% IgG colostrum. And this is one that I found to be very powerful. Now, of course, the only difference is that this is capsule form. Personally, I do kind of like the powders better because I don't like consuming a lot of capsules. But a lot of times what I'll do is I'll just open these up and I'll dump them in my drink and I'll drink them down anyway. That way I'm not consuming the gel caps. All right, and last but not least, I actually saved the best one for last here. All right, so this is the hidden gem here. This is the secret weapon, L-glutamine. This right here, this powder, is and can be extremely, extremely powerful in healing the gut. And I will say that this combined with bone broth, even if you don't do the colostrum, but L-glutamine, bone broth, and if you want to include collagen, this is going to set you up for success. This is extremely, extremely powerful. Now, this is Mutant brand, and no, I'm not sponsored by them either. And I used to take this for muscle recovery when I was powerlifting and bodybuilding, but then once I started healing, I read about the health benefits that L-glutamine could have on the gut, and that is when I started including it for the purpose of healing my gut. Do not skip this one if you have gut problems. Now, here's my favorite thing to do. All right, I'm going to show you this. This is the gut healing elixir. So you have your bone broth, and then you come in here. This is 5 grams. All right, 5 grams of L-glutamine. Gonna mix that to the bone broth. We're gonna mix in 1 scoop, which is 100 milligrams of collagen peptides. And then we're gonna mix in some colostrum. And I'm telling you right now, this is the best gut healing elixir that you will ever possibly have, and it is going to set you up for success. And I'm going to use my dog's kind here for this because it's powder form. So that was just a 1/4 teaspoon, which it doesn't say how much is in a 1/4 teaspoon, but that's what we're going to go with. All right, and just mix this together. Hopefully it mixes okay because this is still kind of gelled up and it is not very liquidy. All right, so that right there, that beautiful glass, and if you were to heat your bone broth up, it would mix a little better than mine. I like consuming mine kind of cold when it's gel. But this mixture right here, if you were to do this 2 to 3 times a day, and you clean your diet up, and you're eating a diet of nutrient-dense whole foods, I can guarantee you that you will see amazing success with healing your gut. I'm telling you, this is the best gut healing elixir that you will ever come across. All right, and one additional bonus I'm going to throw in here is probiotics. Okay, probiotics can also be very protective of the gut. They don't really heal the gut per se, but they can promote a healthy gut. And they can help to push out a lot of the bad stuff that might be still residing in your gut, things like bad bacteria. And in a lot of cases, they can also have a anti-inflammatory and an antihistamine effect. And this one specifically, which is multi-9 probiotic, this is the only one I found that did not affect my histamine intolerance and actually improved it drastically, okay? Because this one has a lot of histamine demoting bacteria in there. And I'm going to put a list up on the screen so you can see what bacteria are antihistamine essentially. And if you include probiotics in your routine, those are the ones you want to go with. And I will say that while this didn't really heal my gut, it definitely made my symptoms a lot better. And it probably helped to create a healthy environment in my gut that set it up for the best chance of healing. So that's the stuff I would recommend. That is my very simple 3-step gut healing protocol. If you stick with that, I think that you will see amazing results. And I really do hope that if you have leaky gut and you follow this, I hope this does help and I hope you get through that. Because as somebody who's went through that and I've experienced all the bad things that come along with that, I know how bad it sucks. It can be a very terrible situation and it can lead to a whole lot of unwanted pain and suffering. So I really hope this helps and I hope you got some value out of this. And if you did, comment the word healing below. And that is going to help to push the algorithm a little bit so that this video goes out to more people and we can potentially help more people heal their gut. Let me know down in the comments below what your experience has been with leaky gut. I hope you have not experienced this, but if you have, share your story. And if you end up trying this protocol or you try this elixir, definitely keep me updated on how you progress. I hope that within a few short months, you're going to come back with an amazing success story. So if you haven't done so already, be sure to like, subscribe, join the Apex Tribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Cheers. That's going to heal the gut for sure. Good stuff.